Hey, what's up guys? How you doing? Matt Antonelli here. Today we're talking a little bit about stride length. I get asked a lot by players. I receive a lot of emails and they're always asking me, how long should my stride be? Well, the stride is not an exact science. There isn't a certain length that it should be for every single player. Basically, when it comes down to it, your stride length is going to usually be determined by your initial setup. How close or far apart are you in your initial setup with your stance? If you're a guy that is going to set up and start off with his feet very, very close together, well then you're going to have to take a longer stride. If you're a guy that is very wide in your stance, well then you're really not going to have to take a stride at all. You might just pick up your foot and put it down. There's an area that all players, whether you start very close or you are very wide, that every player needs to get to give themselves the ability to have a good balanced athletic position so that when we're going through our swing, we're going to be balanced, we're going to be powerful, we're going to be able to rotate and have something underneath us to hit with. So what I want to do right now is go through a bunch of different players. I'm going to throw up some players that have wide stances, and I'm going to throw up some players that have very narrow stances. And what you're going to see is most of them are going to get to a pretty similar position when their foot finally lands and they're about to swing. Now again, before I begin, I just want to make sure that everyone knows this is not an exact science. There isn't an exact distance that everyone needs to get to. Everyone will be similar, but there will be a few people that are the exception to the rule. There always is. What I want to give you is an idea of where most hitters get to. So let's start off with Albert Pujols. He's a guy that starts initially with his feet a little bit wider apart. He has more of a wide stance. And because of that, he's going to take a shorter stride. You can see it's basically probably around an inch or two. Next, we're going to go to Babe Ruth. Now, this is the opposite end of the spectrum. Babe was a guy that started with his feet very, very close together. And because of that, he's going to take a much longer stride to get into that good athletic hitting position. And as we watch, you can see how much further his stride foot is than Albert Pujols. But when he lands, and we stop him here, he's in a pretty similar position to Pujols after his stride foot lands. Next we have Jim Edmonds. Edmonds, like Pujols, starts very wide. He actually starts a little bit wider. So if we go through and watch his stride, all he's going to do is go up on a toe and put it right back down. So he basically has no stride because he is so wide to begin with. And by doing that, again, he's in a very good athletic hitting position for him to rotate on. Our next hitter is Kevin Youkilis. Now back to the other end again. He's someone that starts very, very close together. So he's again going to need a longer stride to get into that good athletic hitting position. You can see how much bigger his stride is so that when he lands, he's in a good position for balance and to be able to rotate around. Next we have Jeff Bagwell, another guy that has an initial setup with a very wide stance. And all he's going to do is pick up and put his foot right back down to where it was at the beginning. It might actually come backwards a little bit. So that's something very unique, but he starts so wide that if he were to go any wider, he'd be too wide. But where he lands puts him in a perfect position to turn and swing. Next we have Dustin Pedroia. Again, he's more upright with his feet a little bit closer together. Not as close together as, say, a Babe Ruth, but a little closer together. As we go through this, you'll see that he has, again, a much bigger stride. And out of everyone that I've watched, he probably gets the widest out of any player. So this is one guy that obviously feels comfortable, and he's still able to rotate, have good balance, and get his hips through with how wide his stance is. And then the last guy we'll look at is Alex Rodriguez. This is back when he was with Texas, and his initial setup is kind of average. He's not very wide, he's not very narrow. So when he goes and takes his stride, he has a little bit of a leg kick, and his stride is not as big as a Pedroia's, but it's also not as small as a Pujols or someone that's a little bit wider. It's kind of a average stride. And it puts him, again, in a very good position, a very strong athletic position for him to be able to turn, rotate, and swing properly. So, as you can see, no two hitters are alike. Everyone's a little bit different. But if you start closer together, you're going to need to take a bigger stride to get out there in that good athletic position. If you start wider, then you're not going to have to take that longer stride. And that's going to determine how big or small your stride is. Hope this helps. If you have any questions, let me know. And good luck.